widowed millionaire father freezes as the nanny takes on the role of mother with his children. Nathan Moore woke up on a Monday morning in early fall, just like he had for the past 3 years, inside a large, quiet, and hauntingly empty home. Soft sunlight slipped through sheer white curtains, casting a glow on the wall where a wedding photo still hung. A smiling Nathan beside Grace, the woman who had once been his entire world, now just a memory. He reached out to the other side of the bed, where she used to sleep. The pillow was cold, slightly dented on one side, but empty. That gesture hadn't faded, even though Grace had been gone for 3 years. Cancer had taken Grace, a cruel illness that stole his wife, the mother of his children, and the light from his life. She had been a pediatrician, always with a warm smile and a calming voice for any child. Even in her final days, when strength had left her, she held on to her faith. On the last night, before falling into an eternal sleep, she held Nathan's hand and whispered, "Promise me, Nathan. Be both father and mother for our kids. Don't let grief blind you from what matters most." He had promised, with tears and a broken heart. But 3 years later, he knew he had failed. Chloe and Ethan, the 2 children born of their love, had been raised mostly by housekeepers, tutors, and especially Sophia, their live-in caregiver. Nathan, meanwhile, buried himself in work. As a renowned architect, he spent his days at project sites, boardrooms, and draft tables. He convinced himself he was doing the right thing, making money to secure his children's future, building a legacy while losing presence. Breakfasts went on without him. Parent-teacher meetings saw someone else attend. And precious moments, morning giggles, bedtime hugs, had disappeared from his life. That morning, as Nathan stood in front of the mirror in his spacious bathroom, his eyes stared back at him. A 45-year-old man, polished, successful, but with eyes that no longer sparkled. He remembered mornings when Grace was still alive, how she'd tickle the kids awake, how the whole family read the Bible together, and how he once believed nothing could shake that home. But it had broken, and he, instead of mending it, had run away. He slipped on a crisp white shirt and a tailored slate gray suit, expensive but soulless, and walked downstairs through the service staircase, avoiding encounters. He didn't want to see Sophia, not out of disdain, but because the guilt was becoming too heavy. In the sleek, spotless kitchen, modern but lacking warmth, he brewed himself a simple black coffee. Not the gourmet blend the chef usually prepared, but a basic one, just like Grace used to make. As the kettle boiled, his eyes wandered to the fridge where drawings by the kids were still pinned. One drawing made him stop. It showed a family, dad, mom, 2 kids, and the son above. In the corner, with shaky handwriting, Ethan had written, "Me, Mommy Grace, Daddy, will see each other in heaven." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest. His 6-year-old son still held on to the things Nathan had nearly lost: faith, love, and hope. He took a sip of coffee, eyes gazing out into the garden, once Grace's sanctuary filled with lavender, roses, and herbs. Now maintained by landscapers, it remained beautiful, but soulless, just like the house, just like him. He glanced at the clock. Late, a crucial meeting awaited, a new shopping complex project. He turned to leave, but his eyes landed on the door leading upstairs, where Chloe and Ethan still slept, their dreams untouched by his absence. His hand hovered near the knob, trembling slightly. But he pulled back. Again. Not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how to come back. Yet. Once again, he walked out the door without seeing Chloe's morning smile or feeling Ethan's tiny hug. He didn't know that today. Everything would begin to change. Nathan drove down the tree-lined boulevard in his sleek black SUV. The radio was tuned to the usual financial news, numbers, markets, real estate indexes. all the things he used to consider most important. But today, his mind was a storm. Something inside him felt out of reach. It wasn't until he pulled into the company parking lot that he realized he had forgotten his briefcase at home, the one containing critical blueprints and legal documents for a major investor meeting. Normally, he would have called his assistant or had someone else retrieve it. But this time, he hesitated. That briefcase held highly confidential material, and something, faint, undefined, told him he should go himself. As he turned onto the private road leading back home, Nathan had no idea that in just a few minutes his heart would be shattered, not by grief, but by a truth he had avoided for 3 years. He entered through the front door, no hurried footsteps, no housekeeper rushing to greet him. The house was silent, not peacefully so, but in the way that things are silent when no one expects joy anymore. Walking past the hallway toward his office, he heard laughter, a sound he hadn't heard in this house in far too long. Children giggling, clinking silverware. A woman's soft voice, Sophia's voice. He slowed down, then stopped completely at the doorway of the dining room. The scene in front of him froze him in place. At the end of the dining table, Sophia sat between Chloe and Ethan. She wore a simple beige sweater, her hair tied back. On the table, homemade breakfast, toast, eggs, fruit, and milk. Nothing extravagant, but it radiated warmth. Sophia was carefully cutting Chloe's toast into little squares. Ethan, with a milk mustache, said something funny that made them all laugh. Then Chloe looked up, eyes glowing, and said sweetly, "Thanks, Mommy Sophie." Nathan blinked, thinking he'd misheard. But then Ethan hugged Sophia and kissed her cheek. "I love you too, Mommy Sophie." And Sophia, the woman he had once seen merely as staff, didn't correct them, didn't hesitate. She just smiled tenderly, smoothed Chloe's hair, and softly replied, "I love you both too, sweetheart." Nathan felt like a knife had pierced his chest. He stood frozen, invisible, like a stranger watching his own family. Grace's voice echoed in his mind, "Be both father and mother for them." And now someone else was doing exactly that, not him. Just then, Chloe clasped her hands, closed her eyes, and began to pray. "Thank you, God, for Mommy Sophie, for yummy breakfast, and for Daddy's love. Please help Daddy be happier. Amen." Ethan chimed in, "Amen, and please let Daddy play with us one day." Nathan couldn't take it anymore. He stepped back, heart pounding. What he'd witnessed wasn't performance, it wasn't courtesy, it was real love, the kind he once had and abandoned. Sophia hadn't taken Grace's place, she hadn't asked to be a mother, but the children had given her that place with all the innocence and trust in their hearts. And Nathan realized he hadn't just lost Grace, he was slowly losing his children too. Nathan stepped away from the dining room like a man lost in fog. Slowly, he made his way to the backyard, where Grace once spent mornings tending to her roses and pulling weeds from the herb garden. In the soft morning light, everything was perfectly trimmed, but like his life, everything looked perfect on the outside, but was hollow inside. He sat on a stone bench, buried his face in his hands. Guilt surged like crashing waves, pounding on a heart he'd locked away for 3 years. He had broken his promise, to Grace, to his children, to himself. The truth was, he had run away. Not to build a better future for the kids, but to avoid the pain, to escape the unanswered questions, to hide from the nights without Grace's hand in his. He remembered the times Chloe had tried to tell him about her day, and he'd only nodded absent-mindedly. The nights Ethan was afraid of the dark, it was Sophia who read bedtime stories and held him to sleep. And Nathan? He was always busy, or pretending to be. He thought about the drawings on the fridge, invisible puzzle pieces of a childhood he had missed. Suddenly, he stood up, walked into the house, and headed straight for Chloe's room. The small room was decorated in soft pinks, rainbow stickers, and teddy bears. On her desk lay a small purple diary with a plastic lock. Nathan knew he shouldn't open it, but something inside him needed to know what his daughter truly felt. The first page, written in wobbly, childlike handwriting, read, "Today, Mommy Sophie helped me with math. She's more patient than my teacher. I wish Daddy was like Mommy Sophie." Another line hit even harder. "I miss Mommy Grace, but I need someone here too. Sometimes I pretend Mommy Sophie is my real mom. I don't know if that's wrong." Nathan stood frozen. His daughter, little Chloe, was trading grief for healing, and he, the only parent left, had not even noticed. Silently, he left Chloe's room and walked down the hall to Ethan's. Inside, everything was tidy. On the desk lay a stack of drawings. Most of them showed the same theme, a family of 4. Sophia was always in the middle, holding the kids' hands. Nathan, if drawn at all, stood off to the side, like an outsider. One drawing had shaky letters that read, "I love Daddy, but he's always sad. Mommy Sophie says when grown-ups are too sad, they forget how to show love. I'll keep loving Daddy, even if he forgets to love me back." Nathan collapsed onto the edge of the bed, his breath caught between guilt and revelation. Those innocent words, so forgiving, so pure, didn't just pierce him. They shattered every wall he had built to survive. Grace was gone, but Sophia, the woman he'd never really tried to know, was now holding the hearts of his children day by day, moment by moment. And he had not been there. The next morning, Nathan woke up earlier than usual. Sleep had eluded him. His mind still tangled with Chloe's diary, Ethan's drawings, and the image of Sophia at the breakfast table, like a real mother. As he made his way downstairs, he didn't turn on the lights. The house was still cloaked in the gray calm of pre-dawn, silent and still. He meant to grab a glass of water, but as he passed by the living room, he heard something. A soft, stifled sob. He stopped, holding his breath. The sound was faint, coming from the corner of the sofa near the large window that looked out onto the garden. He stepped closer quietly, staying behind the wall. And there she was, Sophia, sitting alone, curled up as if trying to make herself invisible. She wore a thin robe, clutched a small pillow to her chest, and stared out the window with a hollow expression. Tears glistened on her cheeks, some still falling. She didn't know anyone was watching. In that moment, Sophia was no longer the strong caregiver, no longer Mommy Sophie with a gentle voice and warm smile. She was simply a woman holding onto her loneliness, silently and carefully. She whispered something faint, just under her breath. Nathan only caught fragments. "If I'm not enough, God, are you going to take them from me too?" His chest tightened. How long had Sophia been afraid of losing this home, losing the children? He had never once asked if she was okay, never listened beyond what she did for his family. Nathan quietly stepped back, making sure not to be seen. But something in him had shifted. A door had opened. For the first time, he truly saw what he had been blind to. Sophia wasn't just helping raise his children. She was trying to find a family for herself. Nathan couldn't stop thinking about what he saw that morning. Sophia crying silently before sunrise. She didn't know he had seen her, and he didn't say anything. But something changed in him that day. No longer the cold distance of a homeowner, but the genuine concern of a man who realized he'd overlooked too much. A few days later, with the kids at school, Nathan invited Sophia to sit outside on the back patio, the one with the wooden table Grace once picked out. The sunlight was soft, the wind gentle. For the first time in years, he didn't bring his phone. "Miss Sophia," he began quietly, his voice rough, "would you tell me about yourself?" Sophia paused. Her hazel eyes widened slightly. guarded. But after a moment, perhaps tired of keeping it all in, she nodded. She was born in a small town in Idaho. Her father left when she was 8, and her mother worked 3 jobs to raise her. Sophia spoke of a childhood full of struggle, but also full of love. She had once dreamed of becoming a preschool teacher, until her mother was diagnosed with late-stage cancer when Sophia had just turned 22. She dropped out of school, left the city, and came home to care for her mother. For 3 years, she rarely stepped outside. Her life revolved around caregiving. "Sometimes," she said, her voice trembling, "I felt like I gave away my entire youth. My friends were getting married, having babies, and I was holding syringes, reading prescriptions, and crying quietly at night." Nathan sat still, never interrupting. After her mother passed, Sophia had no close family left. The man she once loved, an engineer, left her during her mother's illness, calling her sacrifices irrational. "I've forgiven him," she said softly. "But I also learned something. Love without patience and loyalty isn't love at all." With no money and no degree, she started from scratch. A family friend in Seattle helped her find a job as a nanny. She packed a few clothes and a box of old letters from her mother and moved. Her first job was caring for a boy with autism. She stayed with that family for nearly 2 years until they moved away. "And then I met your kids," she smiled, eyes glistening. "Chloe and Ethan. From the first moment, I don't know why, but my heart felt like it had been waiting for them." She recalled how Chloe hardly spoke at first, withdrawn and wary. Ethan wouldn't sleep without someone holding his hand. And day by day, through meals, bedtime stories, and shared moments, she slowly became something familiar to them. "But I never dared call myself a mother," she looked at Nathan, "because I didn't give birth to them. I just wanted to stay long enough for them to feel safe." A soft breeze passed. A leaf drifted onto the table. Nathan swallowed hard. He didn't know what to say. This woman had been weaving a new home inside the house he had let grow cold. He sighed, finally asking, "Did you ever worry that I'd ask you to leave?" Sophia gave a sad smile and nodded. "Not ever. Always. I live here as if I borrowed a place, never permanent. Even when the kids call me mommy, I've never allowed myself to believe I truly had a family." Silence lingered for a few moments. Then Nathan spoke slowly. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." She looked up. "The kids need you," he continued. "And I think I do too." It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a promise. It was a truth, simple, sincere, and real. And Sophia cried. But this time they were tears she didn't have to hide. The next morning the house was as quiet as usual, but Nathan was up before anyone else. For the first time in a long while, he didn't head straight to his office or open his emails. Instead, he walked into the kitchen. Sophia came downstairs, surprised to find him standing at the stove, awkwardly flipping eggs and burning the edge of a piece of toast. "What are you doing?" she asked, smiling softly. Nathan turned, a little embarrassed. "Trying to make breakfast. Not sure it's edible, but I thought I should start somewhere." She chuckled and stepped in to help slice fruit and pour milk. They didn't talk much, just shared a morning with no walls between them. When Chloe and Ethan woke up and ran into the kitchen, they both froze for a moment at the sight of their father wearing an apron, sitting at the table. Chloe blinked. "Dad? Made breakfast?" Nathan nodded. "I may not be as good as Mommy Sophie, but I'm learning." Ethan ran to hug him. "You're home today? Really?" "I canceled all my meetings," Nathan replied, holding his son tight. "Today is family day." After breakfast, Nathan took them all to the lakeside park. They packed sandwiches, fruit, and a picnic blanket. He sat on the grass, played tug-of-war with Ethan, helped Chloe build a popsicle stick castle, and for the first time in years, his laughter was real. From a short distance, Sophia watched, her eyes wet with emotion. She had never seen Nathan like this, warm, genuine, and fully present. That night, after story time and bedtime hugs, Nathan gently knocked on Sophia's door, the first time he had ever initiated it. In his hand was an envelope. "I spoke with a lawyer," he said quietly. "I want you to become the kid's legal mother, if you'll accept." Sophia's eyes widened. "You really mean that?" Nathan nodded. "They need you, and I need to finally do the right thing." Tears fell. He didn't touch her, didn't rush, just set the envelope gently on her table and stepped away, giving her space. But peace doesn't always last, not when the past still waits outside the door. A week later, it came knocking, sealed in the gold emblem of the Washington State Court. A door had been opened, and Nathan's first step was finally steady on the road home. Peace inside the Moore household didn't last long. One drizzly afternoon, just after Nathan returned from the park with the kids and Sophia, he found an envelope lying on the entry table, pale yellow, sealed with the emblem of the Washington State Court. He opened it, read each line, then froze. Margaret Reed, Grace's mother, had officially filed a petition requesting full legal custody of Chloe and Ethan. The stated reason: Nathan Moore was an unfit father who had neglected his children during a critical emotional period after their mother's death. The filing also emphasized that Sophia had no legal, marital, or biological connection to the family, and allowing children to live with such a person posed severe psychological risks. Nathan clenched the lawsuit in his hands. Part of him boiled with anger. Another part ached. Sophia stood nearby, trembling lips reading the copy. Her eyes met Nathan's with a silent question she couldn't voice. Are we going to lose them? But beneath Margaret's polished claims of acting in the children's best interest lay a darker truth. Before her death, Grace had established a trust fund for the children, valued at over $3 million, strictly allocated for their education, health care, and living expenses, overseen by their legal guardian. If Margaret won custody, she would gain full control over that trust. What few people knew was that she was drowning in gambling debt. Nathan had quietly paid off one of her loans the previous year, hoping she'd change. She hadn't. With legal guardianship, she could easily justify expenses, at least on paper. The case moved quickly, given the involvement of minors. Local media began covering it when Nathan's name surfaced, a high-profile architect now accused of child abandonment. Old photos and records resurfaced. Nathan missing school plays, field trips, even Ethan's first birthday after Grace's death. All the moments he'd buried in regret, now dragged into the courtroom spotlight. Sophia became a target. Online gossip called her an outsider clinging to a rich family for gain, despite her never asking for anything but time with the children. Each night, the home grew heavier. Chloe hugged her pillow, whispering, "Will you let them take me, Daddy?" Ethan, curled in Sophia's lap, asked softly, "If Grandma takes us, can Mommy Sophie come too?" Those innocent questions were knives twisting in Nathan's chest. He knew this was no longer about legal paperwork. This was a fight for family, a family he had once neglected and now had to protect with everything he had left. The morning of the trial, Seattle's sky hung gray and heavy, mirroring the weight in everyone's heart. Nathan wore a black suit, fists clenched on his lap. Sophia sat beside him, her eyes too tired to hide her fear. Across the courtroom, Margaret Reed sat upright, a cold precision to her posture. Her eyes carried no grief, only strategy. The courtroom was small, but every seat, every glance, felt like a spotlight. Margaret's attorney opened with carefully crafted arguments, a narrative of an absentee father, an unrelated woman intruding on the children's life, and a concerned grandmother fighting for her grandchildren's future. Mr. Nathan Moore, the lawyer said, has been absent for over 2 years. School reports, witness statements, all confirm his lack of presence. In contrast, Mrs. Margaret Reed is a blood relative, a stable figure, and financially qualified. Nathan's attorney countered, pointing out Margaret's lack of personal involvement with the children and, more importantly, the suspicious inconsistencies in her finances, with multiple records linking her to gambling debts. "We ask the court to question," he said, "whether this petition is truly for the children's welfare or a calculated attempt to gain control of a $3 million trust." The room fell into an uneasy silence. Nathan stood to speak. He didn't look at the judge or Margaret. He looked at the public bench, where Chloe and Ethan sat next to a social worker. "For 3 years," he began, "I failed as a father. I ran from grief after losing Grace. I buried myself in work, thinking that would be enough. I was wrong." He paused, breathing deeply. His voice was hoarse, but steady. "But I came back, not because I'm afraid of losing them, but because I finally understand. Presence matters. No career or money can replace a bedtime hug or a whispered, 'I love you.'" He turned to Sophia. "This woman is not a stranger. She's the one who stood by my children when I couldn't. She didn't give birth to them, but she fed them, taught them, healed them every single day." Then to the judge, "I don't ask the court to erase my mistakes. I only ask to keep the one thing I've been trying to be worthy of again, the right to be their father. And if the court allows, I wish to share that right with the woman who deserves to be called their mother." Silence. Then Chloe rose quietly. "May I say something?" she asked. The judge nodded. Chloe walked to the center, holding a small sheet of paper. "My name is Chloe Moore. I don't understand everything the grown-ups are saying. But I know this. Mommy Sophie was there when I was scared, when I was sick, and when I just needed someone to listen." She looked up, teary-eyed. "If Grandma wants to help, I thank her. But please don't make me leave Mommy Sophie. If I have to go, then I won't be me anymore. I'll just be a kid with nowhere to belong." Ethan ran up, hugged his sister, and added, "I don't want to go either. I want to stay with Daddy and Mommy Sophie." That moment froze everything. 2 days later, the ruling came. Nathan Moore retained full legal custody of Chloe and Ethan. Sophia Bennett was granted legal co-guardianship, authorized to care for and represent the children in education and health care decisions. Margaret Reed's petition was dismissed. As Nathan signed the final documents, he turned to Sophia, who was quietly crying. He didn't speak. He just reached for her hand. This time, it was real. It was right. It was justice. A family, finally, was allowed to remain whole. 1 week after the trial, the court's official ruling was released. Margaret Reed's petition for custody was fully denied. All claims against Nathan regarding parental negligence were deemed unfounded, given the recent and significant improvements in caregiving. Strike. Financial inconsistencies in Margaret's records were also noted, further questioning the true motive behind her case. Nathan Moore retained full legal custody. But what brought Sophia to silent tears was the final note in the court's decision. Permission granted for Ms. Sophia Bennett to initiate legal adoption proceedings for minors Chloe Moore and Ethan Moore. This action is supported by full consent from legal guardian Mr. Nathan Moore. The day Sophia went to the lawyer's office to sign the papers, the sun was soft and warm. She wore a pale blue dress Chloe had picked out. Ethan insisted on wearing a red tie, because today is special. Nathan stood beside her, no longer the distant father, but the man walking beside her, not as a helper, but as a partner in every unspoken way. When the pen touched the paper, Sophia let out a quiet breath, as though releasing a weight she had carried too long. From this moment forward, she was no longer the woman caring for someone else's children. She was a real mother, Chloe's mother, Ethan's mother. And for Nathan, this was also the beginning of a new kind of fatherhood, one grounded in love, presence, and responsibility. A man who finally stopped running to hold on to what truly mattered. They left the office at sunset, hand in hand. No words were spoken, but their eyes and the laughter of two children dancing down the steps said everything. Family isn't just made by blood. Family is where we choose to stay because of love. One chilly Sunday afternoon in early fall, the leaves had turned warm shades of amber and gold. The family was camping near a forest lake, the same place Nathan had once taken the kids for a walk after Sophia entered their lives. Sophia sat by the campfire, wrapping Chloe and Ethan in blankets after they splashed in the cold water. Nathan sat beside her quietly, fingers wrapped around the velvet box hidden in his jacket pocket. He'd waited for this moment, not out of pressure, not because it was time, but because he truly loved her. A love built from the smallest things. Her laughter, her eyes when she looked at the children, the peace in their silences together. As Sophia turned to ask about dinner, Nathan stood, slowly, silently, with purpose. Then he knelt. Chloe gasped. Ethan squealed. "What's Daddy doing?" Sophia froze. Nathan pulled out the small box and opened it. Inside was a simple, elegant ring, not extravagant, but enough to carry the depth of all he had felt. "Sophie," he said gently, "I'm not kneeling because of duty. I'm kneeling because I love you. I love how you mother, how you live, how you forgave what once broke you. You've already become part of this family. Now, I just want the right to call you my wife. Will you say yes?" Sophia burst into tears. For a moment, words were unnecessary. She nodded. Ethan jumped up and down, cheering. Chloe wrapped her arms around her mother. They embraced in the golden light of dusk. The four of them, no longer fragments, but a whole. No more walls, no more fear. Family, not just preserved, but now complete. 5 years had passed since the trial ended. The small house nestled on a Seattle hillside had changed. The backyard, once a quiet place where Nathan and Sophia used to water plants, was now full of laughter, complete with swings, hammocks, and walls decorated with hundreds of colorful scribbles. Chloe was now 14, nearly as tall as her mother. She still kept a diary and often wrote letters to Mom Grace in heaven, though now those letters were no longer filled with sorrow, but gratitude. "Thank you for sending me such a wonderful second mom, and for our little sister, sweet baby Grace." Ethan, now 12, was energetic, science-obsessed, and always had his rock collection within reach. He joked that he had 2 moms and 1 miracle to believe in. Nathan had become someone entirely new. He founded the Grace Project, a nonprofit supporting widowed fathers, helping them navigate grief and rebuild their families. Dozens of dads reached out, not just for resources, but because they saw hope in his story. Sophia, meanwhile, returned to school, earned her master's in psychology, and became a grief counselor for children who'd lost loved ones. Her office was simple and warm, always with a little chair for kids who just needed someone to listen. She never forgot her own tears from those dark nights, which made her cherish each child's smile even more. The Moore family had also grown. Baby Grace, born 2 years ago, joined their lives like a divine punctuation mark, named after Nathan's late wife, not out of replacement, but remembrance, a symbol of love's full circle. A gift from God. With Sophia's warm hazel eyes and Nathan's soft curls, little Grace giggled through the yard every day, adored by her 3 older siblings, and the highlight of every family prayer. Sunday evening, dinner was done. The family sat around the fireplace, its warm glow dancing on each of their faces. Nathan took Sophia's hand. She held baby Grace. Chloe and Ethan sat close, their fingers intertwined. "Shall we pray?" Nathan asked. Everyone nodded. Sophia closed her eyes and began. "Dear Lord, thank you for not letting pain destroy us. Thank you for teaching us to rise again, with new hearts. Thank you for giving us a family, imperfect, but whole through love and forgiveness." Chloe whispered, "Because love healed us." Ethan added, "Because faith held us together." Nathan opened his eyes, looked at each of them, and said softly, "And sometimes God uses pain to give us His greatest blessings." Outside, the autumn wind rustled gently across the window pane. And inside that room, no more tears, no more walls. Only love, faith, and the warm light of healing. They had walked through grief, fought for love, and finally arrived home.